Okay, it's 2 minutes yet though.
It's 2 minutes.
Usually.
Oh. Right. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. I am going to call the Thursday, April 25th, 2024 special Board of Trustees meeting to order. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Rogan.
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Williams. Trustee Hamrick.
Present.
Trustee Daddy.
Present.
Trustee Lowell.
Present.
Trustee Browning. And Trustee Delman.
Thank you. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, so now's the time for audience business. If you would like to speak, come on up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 4 minutes. So would anybody like to speak tonight?
I didn't put out a sign up sheet.
Okay, we'll go from left to right then. So come on up. And then we'll go online if anybody online would like to speak.
Good evening, trustees and staff members. I'm Harold Hallstein. I live at 431 Evans Street, just across the way. I'm here with a quick ADU construction update. I was last with you when you made changes to help the community expedite ADU development. In the lived experience now, I'm seeing certain things arise that are surprises and that I want to bring to people's attention. One is that the town did last year in May adopt the International Fire Code's iteration that includes sprinkler requirements. I just completed sort of pricing this out. To put in perspective, there isn't really much economy of scale between doing a single family home and a garage ADU. And it's going to cost between $10,000 and $12,000 to sprinkler the apartment. To put in perspective, when we talked about sort of the affordability of it, and I went on record to tell you what I thought it would cost and what I thought it would rent for, just that additional loan can probably account for $90 a month. I'm here to humbly request, not only for myself, but for other citizens who I know are contemplating building, who I'm actively speaking with, that you perhaps consider an exemption within a radius of fire hydrants. It just seems a little crazy for me, given that my main house, which was built a mere 2 years ago, isn't sprinklered, this other thing. And it's just one thing that, you know, certainly the expedited path helps a lot, but those types of costs really do add up. One other thing, which I think is less critical, but I wanted to bring to your attention also, is that new building code, which is adopted, has now made it impossible to do a 2x6 wall with batt fiberglass insulation to meet code. You have to do batt insulation and then exterior foam insulation on the house to meet our values. And I understand like efficiency is very important. I think we should strive for it. But I do want to mention that's an interesting other surprise. When I kind of thought about how much I'd spend on thermal, I looked at average house builds in Colorado, for which there's great data. And then it was like, ooh, why is the thermal such a bigger number? Because now you have to do spray foam inside all the walls. This is true even if you have R60 in the ceilings. So I just thought I'd bring it to your attention because it's interesting. It makes it quite a bit harder to insulate a wall these days. Nonetheless, yeah, humbly lobbying you, and would ask too, if people do think it's a good idea to perhaps make this exemption, if you might take it up sooner than later, so that maybe I could avoid the cost, would be greatly appreciated. Thank you all for considering it and everybody on screen too. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Can the record reflect, please, that Mayor Pro Tem has joined us online? Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Callahan. I live at 145 Eagle Canyon Circle. And this is my first time at one of these, but I'm here to just advocate for a sidewalk, the Eagle Canyon neighborhood. I think a couple of things. We all walk to town. We're Lions people. We like to walk. We'd rather not drive. We're doing it anyway, and it's pretty scary. And I'm afraid someone's gonna get hit by a car. Kids are doing it. Like I saw like a 9-year-old biking along there yesterday. And like you could say, oh, don't do it, but everyone's been doing it for years. So, and there's a pretty wide area. I've heard there have been some conversations in the past, and MoCon, that building there, didn't want a sidewalk. This is kind of hearsay, but now Planet Bluegrass owns that, and I have spoken with them via email, and they said they would be supportive of a sidewalk going in front of their property. Also, I know there are complications with CDOT, but I think myself and several people in the neighborhood are willing to help figure that out, do the work. It's just, who do we talk to? What do we do? Do we have funding? So, and then the last thing in terms of cost, it wouldn't need to be a whole cement sidewalk. I think if it was gravel with a barrier, we're just looking for a barrier so that cars don't pull over. And then also a lower speed limit would be nice. That's my plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Janet Callahan. I live at 104 Eagle Canyon Circle. Congratulations on the recent election. I would really like you to consider a sidewalk coming from Eagle Canyon, and I think there's another community a little bit further out where people walk. It's really scary. You have the baby carriage and, you know, walking into, at some point you have to walk into the grass and you have to look for the snakes, and it would just be really nice. It's really dangerous. Those huge RVs come, and people really drive fast. They do. And especially like when you're pulling over to get into the development. So I just was really excited to see that you put that information out so that maybe we can explore that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chastity Volkovats, and I'm at 308 Seward Street, just about 2 blocks north of Lyons Elementary School. And most of you know that I'm a huge proponent for safer pathways in our community. I know there's been a little flack about the sidewalks along Broadway, but I personally love them because I walk to work. I live in town. I work in town. I walk all over this town every day, walking my dog anywhere from 2 to 3 miles. And those sidewalks have made a huge difference in me feeling safer and my dog being safer because he sometimes will lunge at cars. And so sidewalks are really kind of more at the forefront in my mind. I also have 3 children, and my 3 children, I'm at my last year at Lyons Elementary. When my daughter was in 5th grade, we came before the town, or when my daughter was in kindergarten, we came to the town board and she actually spoke and asked for sidewalks around Lyons Elementary School. And we still haven't seen them. And we walk to school every day and we walk home every day. And I know that the density of the children is over in Lyons Valley Park area, but the cars has increased so much in my time in Lyons. And just as a reference, I've lived on Seward Street for 24 years. It's just so much. And the way the traffic route goes around, it goes on Stickney, because it's a one-way, to drop kids off. So people that are coming in, a lot of times drive up on, 4th Avenue North, take a right heading east on Stickney, and then do this really crazy jog, that is on 4th and our 3rd and Stickney. And so a lot of us have to kind of go in the ditch to avoid the cars coming towards us. So I'm really excited about the potential for safe routes to school going. Really what needs to happen is from US 36 up 3rd Avenue. I saw that it would continue from Stickney up to Seward. I don't know that that section is necessary at this point. Like if it is, then it could be like Crusher Fine or something, but what really needs to happen is it needs to be around Stickney and connect to the Lyons back where the gymnasium is, because kids are evacuating for fire drills and other drills, and they're not always walking on sidewalks. So it's really odd. I think if there was actually a real emergency and they really had to move far, there's not sidewalks in some of their evacuation routes. You know, they're walking down Crusher Fine and dirt. So anything I can do to encourage this and help and get the word out, I'm all for it. I know up 3rd Avenue, it's a huge issue with the stormwater drain, and that's why it has been delayed in the funding. I'm aware of all that. But it's, parents are parking on 3rd, kids are trying to walk, doors are opening, cars are coming and going, they're parking on both sides. To me, that is like the most important sidewalk right now in our town. And really off the highway, to the school, up 3rd, Stickney. And I'm also for Eagle Canyon. I think that's great. I mean, Crusher Fine from downtown would be amazing for them, because we really just need to move people more safely in our town. And so I love the improvements that you've done, and I just can't wait to see more. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online who'd like to speak tonight? You can raise your hand or turn on your video. Right. Doesn't look like it. We are at the board are starting a new process of allowing board to respond immediately to audience business, so that y'all don't have to go home and zoom in while you're eating dinner and watch. And so first I'll ask the board if they have any response, and then I'll ask staff if they have any response. So Trustee Dati.
Yes, I'd like to respond. Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. So first I'd like to can I speak to each of them individually?
Sure.
So I'd like to speak to Mr. Hallstein. I did receive your email, and I believe I responded to that. And I remember that conversation we had around the new international fire code and the sprinkler system. And I also know how hard we are working to incentivize and encourage the building of ADU. So I do think it's worth taking another look at this radius idea close to a fire hydrant. I don't know how far you are, but I think this is something that we need to revisit if it's discouraging people from building ADUs. Of course, we want them to be safe. I really appreciate Allie and Janet coming forth because I guess I haven't paid much attention to the route, the walking route or the biking route to Eagle Canyon. And I'm very concerned about somebody getting hurt. Same with the elementary school. I mean, that is our worst nightmare. We definitely don't want to get to a point where we're here because an accident has happened and we're working in an emergency, like traumatic, from a traumatic place. We want to be proactive and we want to prevent accidents from happening. So I feel really strongly about you all being here to advocate for sidewalks. I'm obviously in huge favor of sidewalks and keeping our community safe. So yeah, I appreciate your testimony. Thank you for coming in at 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to address any of the comments?
I'd
Any other trustees? Go ahead.
I would just echo what trustee Dottie said, so, but I would add on the building code, I guess when that was passed, and I wasn't on the board of trustees then, but it seemed like it was done hastily without a lot of investigation, maybe there was, but I think as we see examples of building codes that incent, I wouldn't say bad behavior, but just, folks may not build ADUs because it's too costly, whether it's fire sprinklers or other code type new code. So anyway, I think it would behoove us to go back and look and really say, okay, get into the specifics of the code to understand what things could deter people from doing the things we want to do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Trustee Wolf?
Yeah, I agree with trustee Hamrick on the sprinkler issue and the ADU. It kind of knocks my socks off to think that it would cost 10 to 12K for that. And talk about affordability, adding another $90 to the monthly notes is not, doesn't seem tenable. And I understand the insulation value thing too, because having helped my son restore his house in Martin Acres with 2x4 construction in the walls and to meet the building codes, you start cramming insulation into those narrow spaces and you basically lost the insulating value. So I think we need to take a look at that. Make exceptions for existing buildings that are being converted to ADUs. Yours is a garage, correct? Is that what
It is a garage ADU. One other fine point worth noting, the code does require now cement siding for fire mitigation, which I think is great. It actually doesn't change the difference and it somewhat mitigates the risk of not having the sprinklers.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And so thanks for coming, Mr. Hallstein. And I agree. It sounds like the board will want to take another look at it from what we're hearing. So appreciate you coming, appreciate you writing. And just so you know, I spent 10 hours at the Capitol this week trying to talk to them about the ADU bill that is now on the floor. So intimately familiar with that situation right now. And thank you everybody for coming and talking about sidewalks as well. I'll see if staff would like to respond.
The only thing other than comments already made would be just to, let Ms. Callahan know that, speed limits are set by CDOT.
Yeah.
Not the town. And so we would, have to meet certain qualifications and warrants to even suggest that, and then there'd be a study. And oftentimes what they find is a new speed limit will be set at 85% of the current traffic speed. And sometimes we end up with a higher speed than what we are actually asking for. So that has to be timed just right. So that we don't end up with higher speeds, because they do base it on the actual speed people are traveling. It's interesting. We can't, sorry, we can call it. Okay. Other than that, I was gonna ask the staff if pressure fine would be allowed in this grant, or does it have to be concrete?
I don't know. My guess is that probably, since it's federal, it would need to be concrete to be ADA.
But that would be a question we could find out. Okay, I didn't have the answer to that, so I wanted to, I heard two people say pressure fine would be great, fine, but I'm not sure it can be allowed under federal grants with ADA regulations, but we will find out. That's all.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Next up, we have staff report with an administrator's report. That's on the agenda. Do you have one this
No,
evening?
I just asked that to be there in case any new information came in today,
Okay,
on this grant, so.
Okay.
Nothing did.
okay,
Thank you.
great. Then we'll move on to the main event, general business, discussion direction to staff regarding participation in a Safe Streets for All grant, SS4A through Dr. Cog sidewalk improvements. Before I turn it over to staff, I just want to compliment staff on the memo for this. It was really comprehensive, easy to understand and clear, and so thank you for that. Take it away.
All right, well, thanks, Mayor and trustees, for coming together on short notice. So, yeah, we're seeking direction on how to pursue this grant, that opportunity that Dr. Cog has come to us for. This is also kind of a follow-up to the April 15th meeting where we had asked direction. And we got the board's feedback, and there was a few homework items for staff to look into. So through that, yeah, we came up, we talked further with Dr. Cog, primarily Tracy was on that. But essentially they need a decision by tomorrow on which direction we want to go. And when I say direction, basically how much matching funds we can contribute, and they need to know the scope of work that we want to put into the grant. They need to know that tomorrow, because then they start working on their grant application for this Safe Streets for All federal grant. So yeah, we needed this meeting to basically kind of present some different options that we've come up with, and get direction on what the board would like us to go back to Dr. Cog with. One of the, so some of the feedback we had was gather more information about the LOMA matching grant program. That is the local match assistance through Dr. Cog. DOLA. Then another one was the sidewalks around the elementary school were top priority. Highway 7, 5th Avenue was also another priority. During that meeting, it was kind of mentioned that maybe the east and west US 36 sections were a lower priority. Then it was also mentioned that maybe some of the other sidewalks that were mentioned in the sidewalk assessment might not be a priority right now as well. And then the last piece of feedback we had was that whether maintenance costs were considered in these scenarios as well. So regarding the LOMA, actually, maybe I'll just let Tracy, so come straight from the source.
Sure. So I did reach out to DOLA regarding the LOMA match program. So Dr. Cog said they were interested in funding from the sidewalk assessment, the phase 1 that was recommended as the first phase that we should focus on for sidewalk improvements and repairs. So that's 4.7 million. So there is a required 20% match. So that would be 940,000. The town has a set aside in the budget already of 245,000. So that would leave a match requirement of 695,000. So I did speak with DOLA. Generally, application review is 5 weeks. But after speaking with them about the situation and the timelines, they said, go ahead and submit an application, and they would put a rush on it. So they would let us know in about 3 weeks. I did get some questions yesterday, so it might be sooner. So to me, it sounds like their committee is reviewing the application that was submitted. And they did ask if they could not fund. I did get the sense that the 940 was a high ask, but they didn't tell me like how much would be a good ask, but they did ask if they gave us less, what would we do? And I said, more than likely, we would just reduce our scope to match, the match money that we have. So, and then I did ask about a reduced match. That's not a possibility because it's SS4A sets that match requirement. So, I think that was one question that was asked in the last board meeting, but we can reduce our scope. But we do have to decide quickly so that Dr. Cog, because what we're doing with Dr. Cog is partnering with them and other communities for a larger application, which I think would assist with our chances of getting an award versus applying by ourselves, because it is more of a national competition versus a state. So, it might be a good opportunity to partner with them. So, but they're not funding it SS4A, which is under the federal grant IIJA program. I know all these acronyms are a lot. So that's kind of where we're at with the Loma. I did submit the application and they are reviewing and they'll let us know.
Okay. Do you want me to go through the options or?
I wanna pause for just a second, and just explain to our guests here tonight that, so what we're talking about is joining other communities in applying for a grant. So it doesn't mean that we're going to get the grant, just so that everybody knows, but we're talking about whether we want to even apply for it. So I'll pause and I'll see if there are questions so far from the board, and then we can move on. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions?
I don't, and I don't feel like I personally need them to go through all the options line by line. I've read all of it pretty carefully, so I don't have questions at this point in the process.
Okay, great, thank you. Trustee Dottie?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the amount we would be asking for is 695,000 after our participation of 245, right? Like, we're not actually asking for 940.
Correct. So, yeah, just to clarify a little bit, the ask for the SS4A grant is 4.7 million.
Right?
And then we have that 20%.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're asking Loma for the 695,000 after our budget that we set aside that we have for sidewalks. So,
And that's the amount that they thought was high.
yeah.
They usually said, more typically it's a 250,000.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't really say. I think it's just, I think in their, on their website, it does say that there's a minimum ask of 250. And I think we have a sense that generally they award around 5.5 million, but, they didn't say in the call. But I think the urgency that we have today is that, do we take the chance that we will get some funding from them and assume what it will be and then commit to that with the Dr. Cog for the SS4A, which we could possibly go back and like reduce our scope later, but we have to, the application for SS4A is due May 16th. So that's why Dr. Cog's like, we need to know who's committed because now they got the next 3 weeks, they're going to be working on this application for several communities, which can be quite cumbersome, so.
So just so I'm clear on the concept, so the Dr. Cog application has to have one of these options that Justin has pointed out.
No, we just came up with a few options to meet the funding that we know we have. We know we have 245,000, so that would be about a $1.2 million total project. We also looked at a couple other scenarios of maybe if we had more match that we might get. So no, we don't have to choose. The board can pick and choose any of those options just as long as it equals the amount that we feel like we can commit to.
But a dollar amount does have to be assigned in the application.
Yeah.
Yes, but it doesn't
And
have to
we have to
be.
decide that today.
Yes,
Gotcha.
that's
So
the goal.
I have a procedural question of you. So I put together my own alternative, which closely matches option 2 that Justin put forward. Shall we address that after we listen to their options?
Let's first go through questions,
Okay,
and then see if the rest of the board, agrees with Mayor Pro Tem that we either do or don't need to be walked through the options that are in the packet.
okay,
And then we can have a discussion.
okay.
Did you have questions, Trustee Hammer?
I do. I see the 245K that we have in the budget. But when I'm looking at the 5-year capital plan, I'm just trying to reconcile. I see 170K for the 2024 budget. What's the delta there to get to the 245?
We carried over this year,
Okay. And so
or carried over 23.
if we use that money for sidewalks, Because there's not much capital dollars out there for other projects. Okay, so. Okay, I guess not knowing enough about the budget, I'd be concerned if we torch all the money on sidewalks and some surprise comes up, wastewater plant needs fixing or something.
Well, the utility funds all have their own
Okay.
set asides,
Okay.
so they are already, we can't use,
But if there's other surprises in this,
in the general fund, we
Yeah.
have that's what that reserve is for. So if we have a surprise that we can't absorb in the budget, we would ask you to use the reserves to address those for that year.
okay,
So the 245 was earmarked specifically for sidewalks. And then there was 180 set aside in 2025, and that's where we
Right.
come up with that option to match.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, I do see the finance director is online too, so
Great.
if you need to add, please do, Cassie.
I would just hesitate when we talk about 2025. That is a placeholder in the long range plan only. It is not a budgeted amount. So that would be subject to the board actually budgeting that in 2025 when the time comes. So we cannot necessarily rely that it's going to be there, but it is a placeholder.
Thank you for that clarification. So I have a question about, oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm sorry, I'm between two speaking engagements and I'm going to have to leave to drive to my second speaking engagement in Denver. I just want to go on record that at this point in the process, what I know right now, and of course I don't know what Trustee Lowell is recommending, but I am in favor of option 2. I think that's kind of where I've landed on this at this point. I know that's kind of preliminary, and therefore not helpful to you, but I kind of have no choice. I'm going to have to go now.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us. So my question is about the West 36, to Eagle Canyon. We talked, I think at one point about the possibility that CDOT might be willing to provide the match for that. Do we know anything about that?
What I feel the process would be is we would have to apply for one of their TIP or TAP grants. We have to apply for a grant and ask for funding that way. I generally approaching them and asking them to share and match. I have not seen that done. So you just have to, it's like we did with Broadway, we applied for a grant through them. But it doesn't hurt to reach out and talk to them and see. But I think one of the programs has already, deadlines have already passed for applications this year. I think it's the TIP. So we would have to look into that too, timeline wise, if there's any availability this year to apply for any CDOT funding. But we have talked to them extensively, fairly extensively about our concerns of sidewalks and crosswalks along 7 and 36. And the general answer is if we feel like there's a project there, we have to apply for it. And, you know, it's the town's responsibility within town limits to find the funding and oversee all the aspects of having that design and constructed. So,
Okay. And then my next question is about the scope. And so it sounds like we have to decide tonight what the scope will be, but then I also heard that we can reduce it later. Is that true, or how does that work?
there may be a possibility if we go for a scope and then we decide in a week. We have to decide these things quickly that, yeah, we can't meet this match then, but they're expecting a match commitment letter tomorrow.
Right.
So, or at least a commitment. It's not the match commitment, but it is a commitment to participate, tomorrow. So I would think we could reduce the scope after the fact, but we would have to move quickly because like I said, there's a lot of coordination moving this application and we would need to know, if we keep changing our mind, it's going to be difficult for them.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think it's better if we can decide today what we want to commit to and figure out how to make it work is really the staff's recommendation, but my recommendation, but yeah, there's never hurts to ask.
Okay, and then, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if you were a betting person, I mean, because it comes down to what do we think loan was gonna be able to provide? And I know there's no assurances, so,
Yeah.
you know, based on your experiences, what do you think because ultimately the town budget's tight, so a part of me is like, no, let's not go for any guarantee. I mean, there's no guaranteed match, so just what we can afford to do on our own versus, but then we're leaving money on the table.
Yeah,
So anyway, so this is the game. It seems like we're trying to.
it is, it's a little bit of, and we've had to do this a lot over the years, so we're kind of used to doing this,
Yeah.
but. And maybe we could do it the other way, maybe we could say, go for a lower scope and lower match, and then if we get that award. Then say, okay, here's our plan B with a larger match that we received from Loma.
Mhm.
And I think, but a betting, I don't know, I don't know if it's safe to say we might get a minimum of 250 to 500. But they may decide it's not a good program to support. We have not worked with Loma yet, this is our first, but it is specifically for these federal programs.
It's to
So
match,
there's
local
no-
match for
yeah.
IIJA.
Yeah, so it is, I think the chances are fairly high, they'll give us something.
And they have been pushing this program. They've been, really
It's been
encouraging us
underneath.
to participate.
Yeah, I guess I would feel better if there's an 80% probability we get to, some number, and then we can back into the math on how large a grant we want to go after.
I think, I'd be interested to know what the finance director thinks
Yes.
about that.
Yeah, well, that was the next question is what is staff recommending? Director Eystone?
Thank you for asking. I think, the risk we take here is we apply for whatever the board wants to apply for. And we don't, if the funding doesn't come in the way we want it to, we try and reduce scope or we have to reject the grant altogether. Does that look good? No. Does that mean we'll not get Dr. Cog grants in the future? It's hard to say, but I feel there's going to be money available to allocate in 2025. It's just a matter of where the board places that priority. You might recall we have the sales tax initiative that's going to be coming in. We're going to be starting to see revenue for that for 2025. So that's for use for capital purposes. Plus, we continually transfer from the general fund to the streets fund as well. So we do have money that we move around and have flexibility with, barring any major unforeseen circumstances of a complete plummet of sales tax revenue or, some crazy capital expenditures or operational expenditures. I do feel confident there will be funding in 2025. It's just a matter of where the board would want to place the priority of sidewalks during that time.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add, Administrator?
Yeah, these are always, difficult decisions to make, not knowing, what else might be coming up over the next year. All I can base it on is what the current priorities are of the seated board, and walkability was in your top 3. And so, I guess I would like to ask Dr. Cog, would they allow a decrease in scope? And if so, then I'm more prone to ask for more so that even if it's not a CDOT grant, if Boulder County comes in and says, we'll cover Highway 7 because that's in our trail master plan to get this connected again, that might free up money elsewhere. As we've talked many times, these federal grants are very limited now. We are at the tail end. So these opportunities are not going to come up. We had more than what we anticipated for our flood recovery, got through that. COVID grants that we weren't anticipating, and now these Build Back Better grants, and they're gonna go away. And so, the finance director and I were talking about it, and it's kind of like, this is a one-time opportunity. If we don't go for the most we can right now, will we ever get to the point to get to all of even phase, phase one may take time, let alone all the other phases.
Yeah.
So, if Dr. Cog was willing to say you can reduce scope, I'm almost prone to go for it, to recommend all of it. Otherwise, I would, I'm comfortable with something similar to option 2, where we plan on what we had budgeted for 24 and what was projected for 25 going toward this. And I feel pretty comfortable we can work that out, because we don't get 80-20 money very often for big projects.
And the other thing I want to point out here is that, the Boulder County Transportation Tax, which is where the $600,000 for the St. Vrain Trail came from. This is the ideal expenditure for that transportation tax in Vision Zero.
Yes.
Ideal.
Ideal for Vision Zero.
So I can imagine a scenario where Boulder County would be willing to help us with the match.
Yeah, I do too. I can picture that. We just don't have any guarantees.
Kim?
One other thought that I'm having is the Safe Routes to School program. That application is due in August of 2025. So it's possible, like, I remember thinking about the scenarios that if we were funded the Safe Routes to School in the August 2024 application period for 2025, we could use that funding perhaps for around the elementary school to keep that, and then you could use the cost of what that might be for a separate project. Kind of confounds it, but gives you some.
What is the timing? Do we know what the timing is for going out to bid and construction and all that?
No, we would the award would be early 2025, and then we would have to go into design. And I don't know, Jess, I feel like design, I would give it maybe 9 months to a year for design.
Yeah, I would say a year, just to be on the safer side.
Would we have to design everything all at once and then construct, or could we do it like in a staged?
Generally, we do design bid build, so you design it and then bid it all, but you can do a design build. So that means you're designing and building at the same time. Some funding, I don't know about SS4A, but like FEMA didn't allow you to do that type of thing. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this one might be a challenge for a design, build, delivery. Just finding, I think, someone who would be interested in that. What I don't know is if we can design one sidewalk one year, put that out for bid, and the following year.
Yeah. Okay. Trustee Hammer, do you have?
Yeah, I heard Director Isto mention, can we reject, let's say we went for the whole thing. And then none of these panned out, none of the matches.
Yep.
And we're on the hook for the 940, can we just reject it? So, okay, so worst case, we don't do anything. But I mean, after you brought up the possibility, these funds are drying up. We potentially, option 2 seems like a safe option, but do we roll the dice and go for a much larger amount? And if worst case, nothing pans out, then we just reject it.
So regardless, we're not talking about building sidewalks until 2026.
Yes.
And if we wait another year, we're not talking about it until 2027.
Patience, my friends, patience. Sidewalks in 2026.
But it's a lot, all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Be a big project.
Okay.
I do believe, Dr. Cog, if they do allow a reduced scope, so be it, but they won't allow an addition to scope afterwards.
I think it could go either way.
It could.
Yeah, I think regardless, it's a change in scope. whether it's increase or decrease, it's a change in scope. But sometimes it's better to prepare for the year larger and then go down versus.
Absolutely.
Because everything gets more expensive every year.
Yes.
27, who knows? 6.
Okay, so trustee Lowell, I know what you had, did you have a proposal that you would like to make?
Yeah, I've been, mulling over all this information as we've been talking, and it turned out I had proposed option 2 with the addition of 350K for the Evans and Park Street. That's defined in the original plan. I can hand this out if you want.
That'd be
If it makes it easier.
It always does. Do
Yeah, we just pass that.
you have one for staff or?
Yeah, there's a couple of, there's a couple of staff actually.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So forgive the narrative on this, because I didn't realize that Justin was gonna put out this communication. So you can cut through all the narrative and just look at the projects that I'm proposing. I went up there and I physically inspected all of these places, as well as everything that was in the original 4.7 million. And I came to the conclusion that these were the projects that are most sorely needed, largely because of their, around the elementary school. I included Evans and Park Street simply because I regard that as a somewhat dangerous section, especially with that 90-degree turn where the old Christmas house used to be. And I can see the value of putting sidewalks in there. And then when the option 2 came out and I looked at it, I thought that was reasonable as well, as long as you added the 350K for Evans and Park Street. I don't know, I'm unclear on your option 2, Justin, what the First Street to 36. Where is that? Where is
Second
that?
Avenue. So that's Second Avenue from 36 all the way up to First.
Okay,
Which is,
Second
Yeah.
Avenue to First.
Yeah, so the corner where Mojo is,
Yes,
that second all the way up to where.
it's so that whole neighborhood can.
so it goes past Smoking Days and putting a sidewalk there.
No, it
No.
goes north
Oh,
of
up the
Mojo,
hill.
up the hill, so that
Okay.
First Avenue, Mountain View,
And that's-
Second, all have a.
Boy, I can't tell you how many times I've almost
Mhm.
fallen
Yeah.
walking down that hill.
Yeah, the downtown segments on this, I'm less clear on that, so I would propose everything included in option 2 except the downtown segments, and substituting instead the Evans and Park, which would then bring that up to, I think, almost 2.5. I'm just doing the math in my head here. So, yeah, that would be 2.575 if we did away with the downtown segments and substituted the Evans and Park segment.
Okay, so appreciate that, hold that thought, because, I would like to propose something different, something very similar, but a little bit different. I think it's important to include the downtown segments. People walk those all the time, you know, and so as we hopefully see a lot more foot traffic downtown, I think it's gonna be important to include those. I would like to actually propose including everything except the East US 36. So I'm with the St. Bray Trail extension. I think that is probably less of a priority. I do think having a sidewalk to Eagle Canyon is a priority. And particularly if at some point we can get CDOT to kick in for the match. So,
So that's 3.5.
yeah,
So then the
So
total is
bringing it down to 4 million approximately then?
3.5.
Are you taking out the 36?
checking out the
36.
East 36.
So that's 750. So you're taking 4.7 and subtracting 750 or?
That's what I'm proposing. And, you know, So I feel pretty strongly that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to get this funded and to get this done. I mean, you know, the last budget meeting, trustee Dati, you may remember, we were talking about how much can we build for $240,000, and it was like 2.5 blocks of sidewalk.
No, it was like half a block of one street.
So
It was like 4.
So I think we should strike a balance between maximizing what we can get out of this and being conservative enough so that we're not on the hook for something that we don't think we can, meet. I'm confident in the Loma match, and I'm confident in Boulder County helping us.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of a leap of faith to know that, you know, at some point we may have to put some jigsaw puzzle pieces together in a different way. But I feel like if we don't do this now, who knows when there ever will be another chance to take advantage of this kind of funding. Go ahead.
And I appreciate everything you just said. I agree fully with everything you just said. But also I remember the discussions we had just in the last few months. We were discussing, you know, the increase in sales tax revenue. And this is exactly the kind of project we were talking about. We're talking about sidewalks, we're talking about drainage, sewer systems. So I feel like between the sales tax revenue that we're going to be getting this year, I feel like between the Safe Routes to School grant that's going to be available in August, and how awesome would it be if it could cover at least the streets around the school that maybe we could subtract from that Boulder County transportation tax. I mean, how much are we paying Boulder County?
I think it's a 0.5%. Is Director Eystone, do you know what the Boulder County transportation tax is off the top of your head?
You're muted.
I don't have it, sorry. I usually have a sticky note, in front of me, so I'd have to look.
I think it's 0.5% that the voters approved. And it's a robust fund. We had a presentation on it in the consortium of cities. So there's plenty of funding, and they're looking for ways to spend it.
Great. We would love to give them some ideas. Let's go to that meeting. Yeah, and I agree with you about 36. Actually, I think if we already have that gravel pathway that feels safe, it's off the sidewalks. I'm talking East 36. And I think also with that connector trail, I don't think that we also need to add to that. That sounds, but I think Highway 7, the one thing I don't like about option 2 is that it doesn't include Highway 7.
Or 36.
Or 36, going the other way. West. That's what I'm
Right,
talking about.
and that's what I'm saying is what I'm proposing is, option 2 plus what trustee Lowell suggested. Keep the downtown segments and add the West US 36.
So is that basically phase 1 minus East 36?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
I could have been simpler.
I'm just checking, because that's what I understood.
Okay, I think trustee Lowell and then trustee Hummer.
So that leaves us on the hook for a 700K match if we go with Mayor Rogan's proposal. You take away the 245 that's already been budgeted.
Yep.
So now we're at
545.
455.
545.
No, 700 minus 245.
700.
And I'm following his.
Is right?
Yeah, I was just punching all this into a calculator.
Yeah, so that's 455K. We have 180K that will need to be budgeted, but as Director Eystone said, it's reserved. So really, we're on the hook for 275K that we would need from the DOLA local match.
That sounds
Loma or
Or
CDOT
whatever it is.
or Boulder County, or Safe Routes to School.
And
I'm
so,
hopeful they're gonna come
I
back.
can look at that.
yeah, I'm very comfortable with that. Okay. Trustee.
I'm sorry, just to finish my
Yes.
point. One more thing is at some point, if we are granted less money, we're gonna have to make some tough decisions, so we're gonna have to come up with some prioritization of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trustee Hammer?
I was gonna say the same thing, Mr. Trustee. My math was a little different, backing out both what's budgeted this year and next year earmarked, and came up with 365. But anyway, so I think that's something that we'd have to make tough decisions if we had to find that money, but it sounds like there's lots of opportunities to, build that, close that gap. And worst case, we reject it, which we'd all hate, but it's an option.
Oh, yeah,
Instead of
and
bankrupting the town.
if past is prologue, we won't have trouble, I think, finding
Yeah.
that much.
So I feel good about it.
And you do too, Trustee?
Absolutely.
Trustee Law?
Is there, so there's a possibility we may not have to use any of our money
There is,
There is,
for the match.
there is.
Okay.
and it happened on that trail.
Yeah, that's what happened on the St. Paul Trail, it's definitely. Okay,
The same, you concur?
Concur, I just want to make sure I have the math right.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
getting rid of all of phase one, getting rid of East US 36.
Yeah.
correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
And so then, yeah, that's a $790,000 town match. Take out the 245,000, that leaves us with a 545,000 delta.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
my question would be, if, you know, we leave here today and decide option A, you know, C, I guess it would be maybe 3, what the one we just discussed. If Dr. Cog comes back today or tomorrow and says, no, you cannot reduce scope, I think we need some options, like what is, you know, what option A, we want to do this larger scope and figure it out. Option B is maybe we do a reduce, this is the reduced scope we're willing to work with, or, and also, and then do we need to come back to the board with, once we get all the money sorted out and say, this is what we got, this is the direction we're going.
This is what they're willing to,
We're just gonna commit to, or we, okay,
if they vote on it.
okay,
This is what they would like to see.
okay.
Okay, well, it was discussion direction, so I'm not sure that we have to vote.
No, not necessarily, as long as you have consensus amongst you that
Yes.
I think I heard everyone.
Yes. Okay, all right then.
So can we, just for the record, for Dolores's minutes,
Yes,
can you name the sections that would be included? Instead of just saying option 2 minus,
I listed it as moving forward with phase 1 with the exception of East US 36.
I didn't know if you
So
wanted
it's
to
really
make that.
option 4 less
Right.
Yeah.
East
It's option
US
4.
36.
Yeah.
yeah,
Option 4,
West East US 36.
okay. So for the public, that does include the elementary school and it does include US
Eagle Canyon.
36 West.
Yeah,
Okay.
And last question, what if we do get the full 695 from Loma? Would the board be okay with doing the full phase 1?
I'm sorry, explain it again.
If DOLA comes back through the local match program and says, we'll do all 695, are you okay with moving forward with all the projects?
Phase 1.
and so that would be the 6 with,
No, if we can do it for free, we'll go for free.
no,
No, that would be free.
that would
That's
be
what I'm
free.
saying. So but you're suggesting if we got it, then we would add one of the,
We would add back this. So if they were able to meet the entire match that we're asking for, which is the 940 minus 240. If they were able to meet that, do we want to add East US 36?
absolutely not. From an environmental aspect, you don't put impermeable surfaces next to the river, so
This-
that's out of the question.
My understanding of it is that East US 36 is on the other side of 36.
I thought we talked about it.
It would be- It would be,
It would be where the St. Green Trail is.
it would be making that impermeable, yes.
Yeah, I agree with
ADA,
you.
it'd be making it formally federal ADA.
Mhm.
I'd like to strike that totally from any discussion. That East 36.
Well, let's focus on this discussion.
Mhm.
And I
But she
agree with,
asked the question.
yes, I agree with you. I'm not interested in making that concrete. Trustee Dati?
I'm thinking it over because I am concerned about the ADA accessibility. And I'm just wondering how accessible it is if we leave it as is. I don't know. I'm thinking of some of our residents who moved into Lions Alley townhomes who might want to access downtown. I don't know that they would access in their wheelchair or their walker. It seems like quite a distance to go, but I mean, part of this assessment we just had talked about the lack of ADA compliance curves and things. And so, and I hear this ecological argument, I do. And I feel like we already have a trail in place, so kind of redoing that also gives me pause, but I mean, we want to make our town walkable. Do we want to make it accessible as well? I mean, I don't know how many people who are handicapped are taking that trail. I don't know. I don't know if they're driving into town.
Are there improvements that can be made to it without putting in concrete?
If you could add more materials to it on a more regular basis and tamp it, what's that called? Compacting it, you know, to be more like that, but we certainly would not want to use, to me, you know, like asphalt crumbles would be much worse environmentally than concrete. It is easier to maintain concrete and there's less maintenance in the long.
I think Trustee Hammer had a comment. Trustee Hammer?
No, I'm just looking to see what does accessibility mean, because it seems like it's probably accessible with the crush, you know.
The pressure point.
Yeah, but it just seems like when now we get into federal guidelines versus reality.
I'm not a good one to ask right now.
I
I have a guy in a wheelchair. It would not work.
It would.
No, no way.
Trustee Lowe?
So that's the only trail in town on which golf carts are allowed. I walk it all the time. It's really well hard packed. I don't see any accessibility issues. Certainly a wheelchair is not gonna cut it there, but you know, some of the motorized, we call them like rascals or things that you see, I think they're perfectly fine for that trail. So.
Yeah, I take it all the time with my golf cart. I could totally see a motorized vehicle
Right.
using that trail. I just, yeah, I don't know, this is a federal grant and I don't know, if they need to be ADA compliant.
Yeah, that's the whole goal.
That's the whole goal.
Is safety and making our communities to be more easily to age in.
And Trustee Brown.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Maybe if a decision can't be made tonight, it could just be something we can circle back to at another date and then we would just come back some of the match. Or we use, you know, we'll just figure out what to do if we have an overmatch of money. And maybe if the board would like, we could circle back on this segment later. And then
I think that some of these pieces are gonna come together over the coming months.
Okay, so the question on the table is, if we're able to secure the entire match required for the entire phase 1, do we want to include East US 36 or not? Trustee Lowell saying no. I see Trustee Browning has joined us. Welcome, Trustee Browning. I'm not sure of the protocol here, Brandon.
For Trustee Brown's joining, or?
Yeah, so we've had obviously quite a lot of conversation thus far that Trustee Browning wasn't able to participate in. So, do we welcome him as a participatory member of the board now, or?
Yeah, I think so. Then he's joined the meeting. I mean, he's a member of the board of trustees, so.
Okay. Okay.
I've read materials.
I'm up to speed on the materials. So.
Okay. Well, trustee Browning, then, I'll tell you where the board landed so far. After discussing all of the different options for potential matches and what we think the likelihood is, the board landed on including everything in phase one except East US 36. And then we were just having a discussion about whether if we are able to get all of the matching funds for the entire phase one, would we want to then go ahead with East US 36? That's it in a nutshell. So would love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I am in agreement that phase one, which are basically the elementary school area sidewalks, are the most important priority, top priority over other things. And I'm also in agreement that I do not think US 36 eastbound is a top priority. I believe, as I heard Trustee Lowell say already, and I agree with him, that I've used that trail many times, and I think it's an adequate trail, and it obviously needs to be maintained properly, but it's usable. And most of the planned trail out to 3666 is going to be of the same type. So it's never made much sense to me that you would concrete just that part of it. And as discussed last meeting, impervious concrete cover next to a stream, there are ecological drawbacks to that. So my preference and would be that we focus on the priority one, phase one portions in the elementary school, address that. And if they want to give us more grant money to do other things, then we can look at that. But I think let's take care of the things that we can take care of that will do the most good for school safety and children's safety in particular. That's my view.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. So it sounds to me like we're going to leave East US 36 off. I would actually like to propose some sort of environmental study to be done about what the impacts would be of concreting that trail versus not. I have an opinion, but it's not informed by a whole lot of data. So at some point, maybe we can move that into a next phase.
I think there would have to be much more included in an environmental study, and I would not propose spending any money for an environmental study.
I'm not proposing doing that.
Well, you mentioned studying,
Yeah.
unless we have the capability in-house here to do it.
Or a grant. Or a grant study.
Or
Okay.
just, we do have, several environmental studies on dozens of projects. I'm sure there are excerpts of the pros and cons of that. Maybe we can put together kind of more of just a staff memo of not a technical study of this area, but just information for the board regarding the pros and cons. It's fine.
Well, I think we're in agreement though. Let's leave that off.
Okay.
For now. We'll take another look at it if and when there's a phase two. But I think this is incredibly exciting. And I cannot wait to see where we land on it. And I think it'll be a great legacy for this board to be able to say that, and staff to be able to say that we made this happen.
In a time when you know.
So the Loma funding, they put a rush on the application review and she thought maybe within 3 weeks. But since I got the questions yesterday, I feel like their committee's already looking at it, so maybe a little sooner.
Okay.
And then the SS4A, we have to submit the commitment letter tomorrow. And then we'll be required to do a match commitment letter that will bring back to the board, so we're all clear on the match and it's in writing. And their application is due May 16th, so that match commitment letter may be probably at the
Next
next
meeting.
board meeting.
Yeah.
And then the award is projected for early 2025, and then we would start the time in 2025.
So if Dr. Cog does not get the grant, we still have 245 set aside for sidewalks this year, which will do one side of the elementary school.
And we still have the same, we're still going out for the next Safe Roads to School.
We will bring that to you this fall
Yeah.
and see if you want to, yes.
Yeah, so there will be other options,
Yeah.
but
But just that's the reality of it.
so we'll hope for the best and try to temper our expectations with reality a little bit. Okay, is there a summary of action items then?
I caught the board would like to research if the grant allows for crusher fine paths, which we didn't think so. Staff is to research if they can decrease the scope of work later. Propose an environmental study on concreting the trail. And the final consensus was to move forward with phase 1, option 4, with the exception of East US Highway 36.
Anything to add?
The only thing was, after audience business, there appeared to be an interest in looking at the fire and building.
Great. Attorney Jetman?
Nope, that's what I had. Thank you.
Trustee.
Is it too late to add something about the barrier along 36 there going west? There was mention about, is that an option within the grant? We talked about the pressure, the fine gravel, like the crushed gravel, but there was also mention about, is it possible to have a barrier? I'm thinking like along Railroad out there, that where we have those green barriers. I don't know if that's a part of the grant.
Let's have staff research that a little bit and come back to us. If we can add that, please. Okay. Then is there a motion to adjourn? There are 3 motions to adjourn. How many seconds do we have?
Second.
All right, I'll call for the vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, staff, for sticking it out at a special meeting, trustees, audience members, thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.